We're seeing now Alex Albon putting in fantastic performances outside of a Red Bull, which I think Red Bull have to take. They must look at themselves a little bit, right? And be like, why couldn't we get this out of Alex?
You see, so do you see right here, yeah? This is where Albon is right now. Yeah, he's in a Williams. There's a Red Bull right here.
Yeah.
Place him in that.
Well, look. Right. I've got a quote from Helmut Marko. This is from Formel1.de, so German publication, translated to, I think Alex is doing a great job. He is unfortunately tied to Williams until the end of 2025. Which, first of all, is that a contract announcement for Alex Albon? Because I didn't realise he had a contract. I don't think he does.
That would be very Helmut Marko behaviour.
That would be typical.
What do we think Red Bull are feeling right now? Because Checo is struggling. Alex is doing really well outside. He's like left and he's flourishing. And obviously, as an Albon fan, I'm not interested in him going back to Red Bull because I'm interested in Alex and I think he could get an opportunity elsewhere if he keeps doing what he's doing. Maybe Williams improve. Maybe he gets a shot at, if Lewis retires, maybe, I've seen a lot of people mention that. I've not really been pushing that one personally, but I think I've seen a lot of people say, could Alex make sense to go to Mercedes once Lewis retires? And maybe you've got a bit of, because I do consider George above Alex, but how do you think Red Bull, do you think there's any consideration of bringing him back?
The word unfortunately does so much heavy lifting in that sentence. So much, bro. At the Olympics when they've got the talcum powder and they're doing up squats and stuff and the bar bends because it's so heavy. That is the level of lifting. Why would he say unfortunately if he didn't think, it would be great if he wasn't out?
He's angling for it, isn't he, Helmut? He's angling for it. I just think because they don't care. I just
think it's interesting phrasing.
I think it's this simple. For Red Bull and the higher ups at Red Bull, is there somebody out there that can do a better job than Checo Perez is doing at the moment? It is that simple. Yeah. That's the start and the finish of it. And the way Alex's form, fair play to him. I didn't have him doing this at the start of the season. He's outperforming. He's overachieving expectations. They would trade him in an instant. Don't be surprised.
But I think expectations were understandably low. I'm not surprised.
Absolutely.
And maybe because I'm biased, maybe because I just take more, I pay more attention to Alex, but I'm not surprised by this. You look at him in junior, George, Charles, there's so many drivers who have spoken in support of Alex.
They looked up to him, didn't they?
Right? Yeah. And he's clearly a quality driver.
Yeah. I think for me, right now, it doesn't have to happen. Red Bull don't need to replace Perez.
Correct.
So it's an interesting conversation. And from the outside, it's easy for us to say, Perez needs to be replaced. But actually, does he need to be replaced for Red Bull to achieve the objectives?
Right now, absolutely not. If we're going to be real, this season, no. But it's a conversation for next season.
But you boys are not getting the assignment right. Put your Helmut Marko cap on. Is there someone out there?
Raise his shit.
He's a window shopper. Yeah. Is there something out there that we can put in this car that's going to outperform, give us more than what Checo Perez is giving us, potentially for less money than we're giving Checo Perez?
Sure.
And if the answer is yes, Red Bull won't hesitate to push the eject button on Checo Perez.
Yes, so this comes down to is it good for Red Bull? Is it good for Alex? And those are two diametrically opposed answers, I think.
I don't think they are, Shes.
You think that it's good for Alex in both situations?
I don't
at all.
That ship sailed for me. From Alex's point of view, think if he keeps, again, we've talked about this, right? How, the law of diminishing returns, all these teams starting to converge somewhat. If Alex, whether it's Mercedes, whether it's Aston Martin, Ferrari, we didn't even mention them, understandably. We don't have much faith in Ferrari, unfortunately. But I think Alex, right now, he's at Williams. He's number one driver. He's leading that team. Lando, right, at McLaren, he's Piastri's doing great, but Lando's leading that team. He's the team leader there. And if McLaren do deliver, it'd be the same as should Lando now go to Red Bull and be number 2 to Max, even though the Red Bull's the better car? If Lando wants to win a world championship, and again, this is massive copium off of this race, but if being number 1 at McLaren versus being number 2 at Red Bull, what's your better shot at a championship in 2025, for example?
Yeah, I agree. I think
believing in the regulations, I would say stay at McLaren right now.
Yeah, I think so too.
I would, because it's Max Verstappen, and it's this team that it's not just because I think Max is a better driver than Lando. It's everything around that. If you would not, honestly, at Austria, it's at least 80% Max fans. He is he's connection to Red Bull is every bit as powerful as Lewis's to Mercedes, for sure.
The one thing I will say though, from like a that's from like a actual standpoint of how the team operates, But as the car, because obviously the elephant in the room is that like Alex Albon has obviously been Red Bull and struggled massively. But I do think a lot of that was because of how hard that car was actually to drive at that point, because Pierre Gasly struggled so much as well. Do we still think the Red Bull is that geared towards a Max Verstappen driving style?
Because look, Adrian Newey's objective is to build the fastest car possible, and it's not about like can Sergio Perez maximize that. It's not about that. It's about, can the quickest driver in my team maximize what I'm making? And that's what they're doing right now. So for them, there is zero reason to tweak their car to make it easier for the second driver.
I hear that.
So I don't think they're going to do that. Lando seems to like a car on the nose a bit more, which is why he's able to sort of drive the McLaren as well as he does right now. So I think he'd give Max a hard time. But Tommo, as you're saying, even aside from the car, there's so much in that team that is just built around Max.
No, you're not messing about, man.
I mean, I agree. I take your backing yourself, and every F1 driver should. But there's backing yourself, and there's putting yourself into an impossible situation.
Well, tell that to Senna in '88 when McLaren were trying to sign him. Nobody thought that he was going to nail Prost. By your guys' logic, Senna just sacks it off and goes and builds another team around himself. Sometimes in F1, the risks are worth the rewards. Alex Albon, what do you want, mate, from this?
Prost's relationship with McLaren compared to Max's relationship with Red Bull,
more embedded.
It's completely different.
Embedded. Verstappen.com racing, like his esport, like Red Bull have gone all in on Max. Like he's, if anything, he's more affiliated with Red Bull than these Red Bull Racing.
So let riddle me this then, chaps. If, hypothetical world, Alex Albon jumped in that car a couple of races in, they saw signs of life that Alex Albon could potentially drive that car, that very twitchy RB20 as it will be then, quicker than Max Verstappen. You don't think Helmut Marko and Christian Horner, do you think they have the allegiance to the quickest driver?
I agree with you.
So what all you guys are nailing it right. Of course, the team is embedded and built up indeed around Max Verstappen. Of course it is. But if Alex Albon jumps into that team and shows just a smidgen, just a sign of life that he could nail Max Verstappen. Red Bull, are you guys the bulls that are red, chaps? Mate,
no, I agree with you.
I
agree, but I don't see that happening.
But as an F1 driver, Tommo, you've got to be in your mind least.
Alex can back himself.
He's got to.
But I don't think there's any way Red Bull look at Alex and think, oh, he could match, if not beat Max.
Not yet. That's why Alex's task, if he did choose to accept it, would be to jump in the car and show them.
That's
proof positive. It's huge, bruv. But you're a flipping F1 driver.
But there are easier
If you don't believe, then sack it off and go home from now. F1, chaps.
Okay, but I'm talking about this like I'm Alex's mum, right? so Alex is going to come home.
My boy will not race for you.
I'm telling you, Alex is going to come home. He's going to go, Mum, I think I can beat Max. And Mum's going to go, Alex, I don't think so, mate. Why don't you try and do something else?
Why don't you do your washing? Like, you know, clean up your bedroom.
And I think Alex's mum would be right, because look, his objective.
Alex's
mums do always know best, to be fair.
They do. His objective is to win the world championship, right? Realistically, and this is taking off your Alex hat, right? I am Alex hat.
I will never take that off.
Never. If you take that off, do you think that his best chance of actually winning a title
100% is in the best car? Absolutely.
I don't see that. Look, Max in the other car, I don't see
your problem, as I see it, the problem that presents itself most frequently in F1, getting in a car that's capable of winning a championship. You know how many dudes have never even stepped foot in one?
Let me retort that, right? So you're basing that off the history of Formula One, with no cost cap, with no sliding ATR scale, with teams dominating time. I think Red Bull with Vettel. Obviously, Alonso managed to somehow get in the fight in 2012, right? But this sport more often than not has had a car dominant at the front. Plus, combined the best drivers, the gap between the best and the worst. Plus, then you had, the McLaren that Senna and Prost were driving in the later 80s, early 90s. I think in this day and age, again, seeing the convergence and looking, maybe next year, almost certainly 2025, the year before these new engines come in, which could, mix it up again a bit, right? Like, surely that just being in that one, there's not going to be that one team at the crescendo like there is right now. I like to think so. And I think there's enough going on in the sport you can't guarantee anything, right? Because again, you can only regulate the sport to an extent. Ultimately, it's on the teams to catch up with Red Bull. It's their responsibility to do it. But I think everything's in place now to give the best hope ever that you won't need to be in a Red Bull to fight for a championship.
I think next season, is going to really shape a lot of drivers' mentalities of what they want to do with their careers. I think next year is going to be a big year because we're starting to see signs this year that if you're a McLaren or an Aston Martin, slap one good upgrade on this car and you can suddenly challenge for podiums straight away.
Yeah.
It's
doable. Yeah.
If that gap, I mean, again, it's diminishing returns, but if that gap then is sort of replicated and replicatable up towards Red Bull again, and you can suddenly start winning races regularly. If you are a Lando and you're getting to 2024, end of 2024, McLaren are actually challenging for race wins, then you go, well, I'm blessed here.
And you've got the
But
team
if you're
built
not,
around you.
if Red Bull are still dominant at the end of next season, that's when someone like Lando or Alex goes, maybe I do have to be in a Red Bull to do to achieve what I need to.
And I just think if we're playing probabilities, Tommo, you make really good points around new era, cost cap, etc., etc. But I would argue that the cost cap, and we've seen evidence of this, if you look back historically, whenever there's a massive rule and reg change, the dominance doesn't cease after 2 years. Most of the time, it trickles down, it becomes less dominant, but this is like a 3-4 year dominance